So, Kareem, Denise, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today and to share your experiences of making career choices through your career. You're two people who I see making an inspirational journey in what you're doing. And so, what I'd love to understand is just some of what has gone into the choices that have made it what it is. The word that I know I shared this word with you and that comes to mind when I think of both of you is courage in relation to career and career choices. So much of what you're doing, Denise, in your career is about courage to make things happen that aren't there. We did not have marriage equality. You were one of the key people who led the drive for it to become a reality in our nation. That's just one example. I could give lots more. Kareem, for you, we all watch Netflix series. We enjoy them. No one ever thought about the possibility, certainly on these shores, of actually how businesses could create that reality, i.e. create a series that their clients, their market could watch. And use the courage to leave a great job in a tech company and go pursue that. So hugely courageous on both sides. So the question, and Kareem, I'll go to you first before I bring Denise in, is in terms of career choices, what's your view on what role courage plays in making good career choices?
So first of all, John, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, and grateful to be here. I guess in terms of, I guess I'd love to understand like the context that you're asking the question in. I mean, do you think like are we talking like overall or in any specific context?
Well, I guess you left a very good job in a tech company. There's a lot of security. There's a lot of safety in that. You chose to forgo that in pursuit of an idea, in pursuit of a business, and there's a lot more uncertainty with that.
Yeah.
And that requires a huge amount of courage. That's what I observe from the outside looking in, at least.
Right. Yeah.
For people who are listening and watching, I guess, based on your experience, how important would you say courage should be for them in making career choices?
Yeah, I think it's so I guess it would be different for everyone. So I'll just speak about myself because I have 100% experience on just my own life. So I'll speak to that. But yeah, as I hear you say this, the first thing that comes to mind is that it's not necessarily the best move for a lot of people. It really does come down to the opportunity at hand, and courage definitely plays a huge factor in that. Ultimately it comes down to making a decision when you don't necessarily have all the data that you need or all the answers that you need. Because if you think about it, making a move like that from like let's say a stable like corporate job to going off on your own, if you did have all the answers, well, there wouldn't have been an opportunity in the first place. It would have been a crowded space to begin with. And so courage definitely plays a huge factor in it. And it's not just courage for the sake of like making a dare with yourself and seeing if you'll follow through with it or not. But really, I would tie in courage with just faith in yourself, faith in your abilities, faith in the fact that if you have succeeded in other aspects of your life before, let's say even most recently, let's say your job, you can probably take that same skill set and using your own creativity, with a bit of courage and a bit of faith, you will be able to find ways to apply it in a different direction, in a new direction. And you will definitely not have all the answers, which is why, that courageous thing is that courageous piece is really important in that regard.
Fantastic. I love it, Kareem. I love the honesty. I love the sense of belief that you're bringing to your answer. And also this living with uncertainty piece. We might come back and touch on that in a moment. Thank you. Denise, when I was looking at your website and just looking at some of the things that you've been involved in, some of the things that you've done, like the word courage just jumped off the screen for me. That's just a personal observation. More importantly, just to give your insights, if you could, on how important do you believe courage is when it comes to trying to make a good career choice in your professional life?
So I have been referred to as courageous, but I'm not sure I ever felt that way. I'm not sure it was courage that led me to the career that I ended up in, working in civil society and trying to affect social change. I left the corporate sector, and at the time people said to me, you know, that's a very courageous move. But it didn't feel like that for me, because when my first job was with Women's Aid, and when I became a volunteer to Women's Aid, and then I started working with them, I just felt I'd arrived home. You know, for me, this was a world that was fascinating. It was intellectually stimulating. It was about trying to affect change. It was about to deliver services to people that needed them. It was a feminist analysis. Didn't know there was an ism for inequality between men and women and things I'd observed and experienced. So it didn't feel courageous. And, you know, we often use the word, the personal is political, with a small p, that actually sometimes you end up where you are nearly accidentally, but when you get there, you think, oh, wow, okay, I've arrived. And then in terms of the issues that I worked on, again, people would often say courage, domestic violence, immigration, marriage equality, reproductive rights. But again, if you passionately believe that the system is wrong, then being able to work on fixing it or improving it or informing a change, that's just a privilege, you know, and then to get paid for it. So it's a complete privilege. And again, the personal is political. You know, marriage equality was about me. It was about me and my partner. It was about my kids having the same equality as other kids. So, and that was actually not a paid position. That was, you know, a volunteer position. So I think a long answer to say, maybe courage is in there. But for me, it was others. It was about the draw to an issue, passion about making change, intellectually stimulating, working with like-minded people, like, you know, and then getting paid for it was just a bonus.
Yeah, you're probably being very modest when you say it's not courageous. However, there's probably something that springs to mind now, is that quite often when someone really believes in something, which Kareem, you've also spoken about, you can then look to the outside world as being incredibly courageous, because it seems to compel you to action that perhaps if you were less passionate about, you may not have that sense of inner drive. So maybe I might come back to you on that, Denise, in a second. But Kareem, for you, in terms of career choices, how important do you, based on what Denise said, how important is passion as a foundation in terms of when someone's looking to make a career choice?
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say I couldn't agree more with Denise. The and it ties in with your question, John. The passion almost over I don't know what's the word in English, but over casts over a nice kind of layer over the courage piece. So you don't need to, or over the fear piece. I apologize. So your passion for something hides the fact that you might be doing what others externally may regard as dangerous or risky or needs a lot of courage. So yeah, 100% agree with Denise there. And yeah, I guess like back to your question, John, like around passion. I think that's the, you know, it's extremely important to go into something knowing that you will be very passionate about it, or knowing that it's something that's aligned with your passions, but in the same time approaching it with a sense of realism, in the sense that, you know, you have to be passionate about something that people actually need, or you have to be passionate about something that you believe you know, there is a need for in general, for profit, non-profit, or otherwise. And there's many different ways that you can validate that even before making that move. But I guess this is what separates, especially like when we're talking the context of careers versus hobbies, right? Like I love music, but I personally was not able to find a way to monetize that per se, you know, or make a career yet, or make a career out of it, I suppose. But like, I would consider that a hobby, you know, for me, obviously. But like, when it comes to the difference between, and I'm passionate about both. I'm passionate about, let's say, music, but I'm also passionate about, you know, what we're doing with our company. The only difference is that, I guess, with our company, we have validated like a solid sort of need, and we're passionate about that. So I feel that there must be, in my opinion, a sense of realism when you're approaching it, as opposed to just doing something with pure passion and with no regard for whether people actually need this or not.
Gotcha. Which I think is wonderful, to be honest. I think on a personal level, I think starting off in my post-corporate career, passion overrode realism. I got the balance wrong and struggled. Denise, how important is it to try and get the balance right between a passion, something you're passionate about, and something it seems has been at the core of a lot of the journeys in your career, versus realism, the realisms of what life requires What's your advice to people around the balance that's required to make a good career choice in relation to those two?
Yeah, I mean, of course, realism plays a part. You have to pay the bills. You know, people have to earn a living. And I suppose anytime I was thinking about a change, that was the first consideration is, you know, can I save a bit of money? Can I give myself a bit of space that way? You know, can I earn enough of a living doing this? And of course, that's a huge consideration. But at the end of the day, I suppose, you know, if you really believe something needs to change, you know, like marriage equality is a prime example. It wasn't, I don't know that any of us thought we were going to get marriage equality in the beginning. In a little, you know, in Catherine and Anne Louise's house in Brilis all those years ago, it seemed like the right thing to do and it seemed like the right thing, but I don't know that any of us thought we'd get it. So if we'd been realistic, I'm not sure we would have gone for it. There has to be realistic milestones along the way where you actually, you know, believe strategically you are going down the right road, you know, the roadmap is the right one, and that, you know, that you may be able then to realize it. But there's certain issues that I've worked on, like domestic violence. It's probably never going to go away, but, you know, there's a belief that things should be different, that the system should respond differently to victims, that we should hold perpetrators accountable, you know, all of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I suppose each person has a different parameter. So, you know, when you're thinking about, or when I was thinking about my move or what I would do next, of course, there are realistic considerations within that, for sure. But I don't know if they ever stop me. I don't know. I think I did jot them down and pay heed to them.
Yeah.
But yeah. So for me, I think passion overrides realism.
That's okay.
Should or shouldn't.
Well, listen, and the whole reason why we set up Career 7 Live was to provide perspectives, and perspectives will never fully align in wonderful harmony. That's an ideal world. I love
just to add to that, in the context that Denise was talking about, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, like ultimately, you know, sometimes it's realistic for you to pursue this, or in other words, you can't picture yourself doing anything else. Like this is something that you really have a strong, you know, again, passion towards. And I, you know, Denise put it beautifully, in my opinion, like, you know, sensing that things need to change, you know, and to have that will overall, you know, is sometimes the driving force, and many times what may not appear so realistic in the beginning, because of your commitment to it, you know, following the process, your consistency, you actually, because of you make it more realistic. Your work has made it successfully more realistic. More people start to join into your movement as such.
And this, I think what you're both saying there now, there's a question now in my mind, which is almost like, you always hear this phrase, like 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. Like, and if I look at both, like, let's just say, just take the marriage equality, and also then let's just take tribe tactics. Marriage equality, in your words, Denise, and you were probably closer to it than anyone else. You know, could you really have seen the outcome at the very outset? You said maybe not. Then I know I emailed you about the book that I read about the story behind the work that went in, and it was just, the work was phenomenal. Like, the work was like just incredible. The creativity, the endeavor. Tribe Tactics has started from just, you know, humble beginnings to a growing team, you know, growing concepts. Could I just ask you both, in terms of 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, what is the biggest contributor to a good career choice of those two? Kareem, you go first, maybe, perhaps, please.
Do you want me to go first? Okay.
Yes, please.
Sure. So I guess, yeah, so I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's the reason why people say, another quote, right? If it was easy, everyone would have done it, right? So, and that's because ideas are easy. Ideas are beautiful. They're brilliant, but, you know, you can't really do much without the perspiration piece. I've personally been reading a lot of books about really getting into the nitty gritty of what it means to be successful. And I was disappointed, but also very pleasantly surprised to know that the secret, so to speak, is so simple and almost boring. It's really about building consistency and building up yourself in a way that you can actually start to to trigger what people refer to as the compound effect, where you're not necessarily doing much, you're not doing more than anyone else per se. Perhaps what you might be doing differently is that you keep on keeping on, or just keep on with the consistency piece, so to speak, which is synonymous with what you said, John, around the perspiration concept. So I would say that maybe it's probably, I would say, like 2% ideas and like 98% perspiration. I think you definitely have to have like a unique a unique or like a novel sort of like approach towards what you're doing. But by far, it's really all about the consistency piece, and that's what explains why sometimes when even if you're not working on something that's that innovative, you may still find or let's say you may be aware of other companies or businesses that are not necessarily doing anything new, but what they are doing new, so to speak, is just their amazing like devotion to consistency and just doing one thing right, so to speak. So yeah, I could definitely say that this was a huge factor in any success we've had, and of course in anytime we fail, and we fail on a daily and hourly basis. Anytime we fail, it's probably to do with how could we have been more consistent towards going on the right path, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Denise, I'm just going to slightly rephrase the question, if I may. Like, if you reflect back on the starting point in marriage equality and where the outcome you got, just as an example, right? How possible would it have been to do the same work with half the inspiration and belief behind? And this is just to think about career choices then for people, because some people may say like, oh, I'm not necessarily passionate about it. However, there could be a great outcome there, financially or otherwise. So I suppose, how possible is it to create such an outcome with half or just significantly less of a personal passion or belief, in your opinion?
So that phrase of my late father is one of his favorites. So it's something that I'm very familiar with. Yeah, I think you have to have inspiration. It's huge. And then, so for me, they're equal balances. You need at times where the persistence or the perspiration has, run out a little bit. Inspiration then comes in to re-energize. And so it's really important. But the other thing for me is not just the inspiration into the work, but does it inspire me? And I think in addition to passion, it's what inspires you. Or one person, very early in my career said to me, find out what energizes you. What inspires you? What energizes you? What do you enjoy? And listen to that all the time and learn as much as you can about it, because that's what gets you up in the morning and brings you into work. So although, I would have a real passion for a lot of the areas that I work in, it's because I enjoy working with the people. I think we can make a change. As I said, intellectually, it stimulates me. Yeah. So I get inspiration from lots of elements of the work as well as the end result. And for me, that's so important. And over the years, always having a coach or a thought partner in working out the next career choice or working out a change in an existing career, that, always getting someone to keep that pressure on me. What energizes me? What do I enjoy? What do I not enjoy? What do I hate? Yeah. And really trying to focus on the positive sides of that. And that to me is the inspiration piece. That if you're inspired by your work, then, and look, that is really lucky. Not everybody can do that. So maybe there's only some pieces of the work that are inspiring or, but yeah, I think inspiration plays a huge part. If you're involved in social change, perspiration is a necessary evil. It takes a long time. Marriage equality, we never thought we'd get it. It's amazing, but there's so many other areas that we didn't and don't. So perspiration is something that, you have to have. But as I say, it has to be mixed in with inspiration in order for it to be continuous.
Yes, yeah, 100% agree. So now another quote is coming up in my mind, and it may be, my gosh, the last question that we get to substantially deal with, which is, it's by Marianne Williamson. And if I don't correctly quote it, then I apologize. Which is essentially, it's not fear that inhibits. It's not our fear. Well, hold on a second. It's not the dark that we fear. It's our light, essentially. So it's our light that we fear. And her point is, who are we? Our fear is about being brave in the world, and Marianne Williamson's quote is, who are we not to be brave in the world? there's a lot of people out there who perhaps are looking at a career choice and that they deep down know that it would allow their light to shine in the world, personally and professionally. And they may be somewhat or significantly inhibited by some factors, and who knows what they are, societal, personal, etc., in following that in a career choice. What advice would you both have if someone here watching live or recording is experiencing that in any way? How do you get ease with that to come up with the right career choice? Kareem, I'll go to you first and come back to you, Denise, then after.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm personally, I'm always wary of giving advice, because my advice only works on me in many cases. But I feel in this case it's quite universal, which is to honestly just find, almost like step one, figure out what you want to do. Step two, find people who have done it, been there, done that before. Those who have made it work, those who maybe tried to make it work, and they have some valuable lessons. But essentially get to a stage where you're surrounded by people who are much, much smarter than you, much, much more experienced than you in that specific field, and just come up with a list of questions and just, adopt a beginner's mentality or a student mindset, so to speak, where you're always like just looking to learn, as much as possible from their experiences, and ask them for advice, because then it would be a lot more contextual, perhaps, to the specific, let's say, industry or specific, idea that you have in general. And the good news is that even if you're thinking of something that's really, really novel, chances are you will find people who have elements, or, in corporate world, people talk about transferable skills that would have transferable learnings that they can potentially bring onto you. The most general example is someone who has also started a small business before you, or someone who has also joined the freelancing world before you. What have they learned? What are the tools, processes, learnings, considerations that they have acquired over the months, the years, that they can share on with you? And and hopefully you get to a stage where you can kind of pay that forward to other people who may get your advice at one point as well.
What I love about that is that whole idea of asking someone who's already done what you're considering. Like, it's, again, that can quite often demystify what fears may be there around it. So I love that. Denise, from your perspective, again, there's many people who could be on the cusp of a brilliant career choice that would allow their light to shine for whatever reasons. Factors may inhibit them from going ahead and make that choice. What advice would you give to anyone who may find themselves in some or significant way in that position?
So what's always helped me, and again, I'd be afraid to give any advice, but what's always helped me is having a coach or a thought partner.
Yes.
So that's someone who will provide the space to think things through, to maybe challenge gently, or really try and get to the bottom of what any fears are. Are they realistic fears? Are they assumptions? Are the ones that can be worked through and put aside? Is what somebody's going for worth overcoming the fears, or maybe it's not, so for me, a coach and a thought partner and a space has always been really, really helpful in that regard. I mean, one of the things I found, and I find now working with people, it's not necessarily that they know what the light is, that sometimes people, it's the unknown, it's not knowing where you want to go, or maybe knowing that where you are isn't right, or it isn't energizing you, but you don't quite know where to go or what next. And that's where I think the idea of meeting people. One colleague I work with, she got 21 cups of coffee. She picked 21 different careers to have a cup of coffee to get inspiration about where she might go next. And I think it's such a brilliant idea. If you don't know what you want to do, working with somebody who really helps you clarify what you're good at, what energizes you, where might you go, and then, as Kareem says, going and really talking to people about what they get from where they are. I think it can be very inspirational and informative.
Brilliant. And so there's a shared theme of talking to people, a coach, people who've treaded the path you're considering. Our time is almost up. So I guess, in finishing, I'd just love to ask you, if you were to, in one sentence, sum up what an advice, just purely based on your experience, and that's all this is, a sharing of experience and offering advice based on that, nothing more, nothing less. If you were to say it as a sentence, best sums up and advice that you would leave anyone who's watching this around making good career choices, what would it be? Denise, I'll hand to you, and then Kareem, for you to finish.
So for me, it's really think about what energizes you. What energizes you and what do you love? And then the rest comes.
Thank you, Denise. So energize.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, Kareem, if one sentence, what would it be? You can't quite steal Denise's word for word. So, sorry.
Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, I guess I would just add, that you have to trust the process, trust the process. Don't look at the scoreboard or the goal, the end result. Just look at making each day a masterpiece, as they say. Yeah.
Fantastic. Kareem Mostafa, Denise Charlton, thank you so much for your time. It feels like we're only getting started, and yet we have to conclude. I just really appreciate your honesty, your openness in sharing your advice. I know I have got a huge amount out of it, and I hope that a lot of people who watch this do as well. Thank you so much to you both.